Hey guys, what's up? It's Lainey, and today I am doing a wrap-up, I suppose. You guys seem to really like when I wrap up my romance books that I've read, so I thought I would do just that. I've read a lot of romance books since the end of Smuttathon. Like, for me, has Smuttathon really ended? No. I feel like every book that I've read since Smuttathon has still been romance. And one of them ended up being my first 5-star book of the year. So a lot of these books are actually books that I wanted to read during Smuttathon but never got around to it. And then even after it ended, I'm like, I'm gonna read them because I really want to. Some of these are still from the end of 2018, but a lot of these are newer books that I've read here in January. I'm already doing pretty good on my Goodreads challenge. I've had it set at 1 for the past couple years, just because I don't want pressure of having to read all the books, but I like seeing them all in like a central location that I read for the completed year. So that's why I put it at 1, because then all the ones that I've read in 2019 are all going to be in that little section. You know what I'm talking about. I think last year, I read 70 something books, which is I think the most I've read ever in a year. A lot of them were romance. So if you did watch my Smuttathon wrap-up, you'll know that I started the series that I always see on my Goodreads, and that is the Planet Barbarian series by Ruby Dixon. Like, I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, even though it's ridiculous. It's a fast, digestible read. That's like the best way I can describe it. Even if it was like kind of silly, I ended up reading the next 4 books in the series. I don't even remember any of their names, so I read book 2, book 3, book 4, and book 5 spread out between December and January because they're mostly free on Scribd. Scribd does this thing where I listen to 2 of them and then they take away all the audiobooks. Can't listen to any more for the rest of the month. And that's what happened for this month in January, which I'm so pissed because I read books 4 and 5 and I was so excited to read the 6th book because the 6th book features a couple that I'm like really interested in. It's like kind of a hate to love type of relationship. And it took it away. So now I can't listen to the 6th book until February 12th when my subscription renews. I really like listening to the audiobooks because I really like the male narrator. There's a female and male narrator and they narrate the entire series. Some of the voices that the female does kind of annoy me, like this super thick southern accent for like one of the books. It was a little too much for me. But the guy narrator, I like, it's kind of endearing the way he narrates the aliens, like the accent he uses for the aliens. I really like it. So that's why I'm always going to be listening to this series because I just enjoy the male narrator. If you don't know what Planet Barbarian is about, it's straight up alien smut. Like, do I recommend it? I don't know. I don't know if I can like honestly recommend this series to someone and be like, it's really good. The next book that I read was The Devil by Ashley Jade, and I'm actually not going to reveal what this book is because this book, when I read the back of it, I'm like, wow, I know nothing of what this book is about, even if I read the synopsis. And I feel like that is typical for darker romances. There's really nothing that's ever given away in the synopsis. It's always like vague monologue about him and a her or whatever, forbidden, whatever. This one is a forbidden romance that I will say, and it is a little bit on the darker side, but that's all I'm gonna say about it. And I've seen some other Goodreads reviews that said like it's best going in blind, and I think that's true as long as you're open-minded with dark romance. Like, nothing really fazed me when I was reading it, just because like I've read a lot of darker romances, but there were a lot of twists in this book. Like, every time I thought it was like I knew what kind of direction it was taking, it was like, haha, nope, and then it would go into a different direction, and I really enjoyed that. At the very beginning, I thought it was gonna be kind of like this trope that I'm like, not the biggest fan of. It's not accidental pregnancy, which I've said before, like that's like my most hated trope. I don't like it. It's like another trope that I'm just like, I don't know, but it didn't like really focus too much on like that kind of kink, so I was fine with it going forward. But at the beginning I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but I ended up really liking it, and I think I rated this a 4. This is actually part of a larger collection that I wanted to mention because I've read one of the books in the collection already. There's a lot of romance authors that I really like, and I plan to do a video of like some of my favorites, but I subscribe to a lot of their newsletters. This is one, I don't want to say based on tarot, but a bunch of romance authors got together. They kind of chose tarot card to structure their book around. So this one was The Devil. I actually read The Pope during Smuttathon. I talked about that one a little bit. So they're all from like the same collection. It's why all the covers kind of look the same. It's called the Cards of Love series. I plan to read more of them in the series because there were some that sounded like super interesting. The next books that I read were the ones that I started before Smuttathon started, but then I put them on pause as I read new books for Smutathon. So the first one was Filthy Gods by R. Scarlett. Riley and I talked about this book in our romance recommendations collab that we did in Vegas last month, so I'll link that up above and down below, so you guys should definitely check that out. It was a lot of fun to film. This one is kind of like that 2000s movie, like The Skulls, with like cruel intentions. It's about super upper class type of people in Yale with like secret societies and stuff, and this is like a prequel novella to like the main series, which is going to be called American Gods. I don't think the first book in the series is out yet, but I know it's coming this year. I really did like Filthy Gods. It's like a fun, quick romance that introduces you to the characters that are going to be in American Gods, and that is the series that I'm like really looking forward to. Then the next book I read was Reaper's Stand by Joanna Wild. I've been reading this Motorcycle Club romance series since the beginning of like last year, so I finally completed the 4th book in the series. I was kind of hesitant and kind of putting it off because the 4th book features a character that I wasn't so much interested in, and I ended up reading this book at 2. Like, it's my least favorite of the series, but I feel like they're necessary to read in order, so that's why I kind of pushed myself through it. It's about the motorcycle club's president. It's fine. It's a fine, but it wasn't my favorite, and I didn't really like the main girl character. I'm excited to continue on with the next book because, once again, I was listening to these on Scribd, and the next book that I was like really excited to get to, but then, you know, Scribd just took away the next book in the series and I was really upset. I'll probably even get to that book till March because it'll take away the book before I even start it in February. So then the last book of 2018 that I read was Man Whore by Katy Evans. This was kind of on a whim that I started it because I like to listen to audiobooks while I'm playing games on my phone. This one was available and Scribd's like, you can't read anything. So I saw this one that it was available to read, so I thought I'd give it a try. The thing is, I don't remember this book a whole lot. I rated it a 2. I know it was about, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because like the main girl character, I know she was a journalist and she was kind of meant to write an expose on this super wealthy billionaire, and they end up kind of falling in love. That I know that's the premise of the book. I don't remember much of what else was in it, so I don't know about that one. So the beginning of the year, I picked up Escort by Skye Warren. You guys know I am been really addicted to Skye Warren's books lately. This was one of her backlisted ones that she released last year that I hadn't got to yet. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be reading Escort, which is about a male escort told solely in his point of view, and kind of like a reclusive heiress that lives on like the penthouse suite of one of the hotels in the city. This one was pretty short. It's like one of the shorter standalones that I've read of hers. I loved it. I rated it a 4 out of 5, but I really enjoyed it, and I know Skye Warren has a new book coming out in February called Overture about a violin prodigy, and I am very excited to start reading that one as well. I'm glad that she puts out multiple books a year because I'm always excited for what she's putting out next, especially these past couple years. I think some of her best books are the later books in her catalog. So the next book that I read was Sins and Needles by Karina Halley. I read one of her books during Smutathon and I absolutely loved it. It was a Royals romance, The Wild Heir. This one has actually been on my Amazon wishlist for years now. So I finally got it and I started reading it. And this one was pretty solid. It was a 3-star read for me. It's about this con woman that goes back to her hometown, and she sees this one boy that she has history with has made a huge name for himself with this tattoo parlor, and she decides that she's gonna run one last con to get out of Dodge and save her butt because there's people after. I liked this one, and I thought I was going to continue on with the series because it is a trilogy, and it's been a while since I've read like a romance trilogy, not a companion series, like full on following the same characters through 3 books. But then for the past couple weeks, I'm like, do I really want to read the second book in the series? I don't know. I probably won't anymore. And it was nothing like bad about the book because I really liked it. I love that kind of setup. I love my romance with a little bit of crime and suspense. I think it delivered with the action as well in the book. So I don't know why I don't want to continue on with the series. So it's like weird. So then the next book I read was my first 5-star book of the year, and that was The Chase by Elle Kennedy. This one was on my Smutathon TBR, but I didn't get to it. I loved it. Elle Kennedy is one of my favorite romance authors. She has written some of my favorite romance reads. This one is a spin-off series to her off-campus series, which is about college kids, hockey players, and kind of their lives. When it comes to sports romances, hockey tends to be my favorite despite having never seen a full hockey game in my life. I like that kind of culture that hockey kind of brings. This one features the sister of one of the main boys in the second book of the off-campus series and their roommate, Fitz. It's kind of like an opposites attract type of story. Because the girl Summer, she is known to be wild, kind of carefree, and then Fitzy is a hockey player, but he loves video games and designing video games and stuff like that. So he's like a huge nerd, which I loved. So she's like the kind of the complete opposite of what he's used to. He's introverted, she's very extroverted, and it's just kind of how they decide to get together. They have a little bit of history based on the other books, but just basically because she has had a massive crush on him in the original series. Things happen, it's a slow burn, and I really loved this book. It reminds me why I love college romances, because I don't read a lot of them anymore. I read them a lot, obviously, when I was in college. This reminds me of all the things I love about college. Does that make sense? Not that this is anywhere near my college experience, but a lot of like the struggles of trying to figure out who you are and what to do next with your life. She puts those in these books, which I think is a very important thing to have in college romances, because that's something that I was like struggling with once I started heading towards the end of my college career. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, what's my plan here? Love this book so much, and you guys, the second book comes out next month, the companion series, and I'm so excited for the second book in the series because it features a couple that was introduced in the chase. The next book that I read was Pretty Broken Dolls by Kay Webster and Kurduki. This is the fourth book in their Fucked Up series that I read a couple years ago. This is the final book. Finally read it, wanted to say I completed it. And this one, well, it just wasn't as good as I feel like the other two. The third one was like okay, but like I kind of could gauge where I thought the story was gonna go here in the fourth book, and it did. And I don't know if I liked it or not. I do recommend the first book if you like fucked up romances. It's not even romance, it's just like fucked up things, but it's like in the darker romance umbrella, I suppose. And then when I was reading reviews of it, I know a lot of other people didn't really like this last book either, and after I finished it and I read them, I'm like, yeah, I can see why people really didn't like this book. The tone that they set up with the first two books really diverged in the third and fourth book. All the characters were kind of acting out of character to me. The decisions they were making were really dumb. It just wasn't my favorite, and I'm really sad that it like kind of ended on a low note for me. But I'm glad that I have finally completed the series. I'm not really involved in the romance community like on Twitter or on YouTube, but I know Kay Webster is a very controversial romance author because of certain books she's published. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I've read a lot of her books last year. I read that before I even knew about all the controversy and drama surrounding her. That's my opinion on Kay Webster. The last book that I've currently read that I just finished last week was Christina and Lauren's new book, My Favorite Half-Night Stand. And this is their like latest recent release. I feel like they're like not as explicit anymore in their books, because I did really like Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, which is the one that's previous to this one, but like this one, they skimmed over the sex scenes, and like I'm like, this is why I'm here. I want to see the sex scenes. This one is about a group of younger professors. They're all friends. It's one girl and like four guys. They decide that after this like big speech thing that's happening, they all want to find dates for it. They decided to try online dating to get them, and our main girl character has a half night stand with one of the guys, and they kind of don't really know what their relationship is like. And then just like by chance, she ends up catfishing him, but I don't want to say catfishing because the way it's handled in the book is not as weird and icky as catfishing. She kind of gets in too deep because she thought he would know it was her right away, but he doesn't, and then he makes a comment about it the next day, and she gets like mad about it. Kind of got that the way she continued on with it because she was embarrassed. I did like it. I rated it a 3. So she's 27, or she's 29. So she's like 2 years older than I am. And like all of the characters were so dated. Like the references that they were making were not references that people in my age group would say. I'm not knocking anybody that Caddyshack is their favorite comedy. I feel like that's like maybe the next generation up would have said that movie. I know this is like a super nitpicky thing, but this was like really bothered me. This wasn't like the first instance in that book where I felt like the references that they would have grown up with were not of their generation, like my generation. They weren't acting like millennials, basically. Take that as you will, bad or good. That I didn't like, because I'm like, come on, is your favorite movie really Caddyshack? I'm gonna call bullshit on that. They were all like, didn't know what Tinder is, and like everybody knows what Tinder is. They grew up with technology. They're the technology generation. That's my generation. We know all this shit. I'm going on too long about this issue, but like it was enough where I was like really thinking about it for too long. I'm just wondering if they're like taking more of a direction where they don't do explicit sex scenes anymore in their books. I didn't see that a lot in Josh and Hazel's, but I can kind of see the natural progression to where this book was. And their next book sounds really good, but based on the cover and the marketing for it, I also feel like we're not gonna get like any sex scenes anymore. They're all gonna be like brushed over really fast. What do you guys think? If you guys are Christina Lauren, fans of Christina Lauren, please let me know, because like, I don't know if this is just something that I'm thinking or what, but that's the impression I was getting. That is it for the recent romance books that I've read. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What are some recent romances that you guys have read that you really enjoyed? I'd love to know. I love getting recommendations. Hope you guys all have a really great day, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!